There is a cruel irony that most men live and die without ever truly seeing. A man can give a woman everything: his time, his affection, his loyalty, even the very core of his soul. And still, she will look past him. Her eyes will drift toward the one who withholds these things. You can sacrifice yourself on the altar of devotion, believing that your unwavering commitment will earn her heart. And yet, more often than not, you will find her heart secretly beating for another, the man who remains elusive, untamed, and indifferent. Arthur Schopenhauer saw through this illusion long before most dared to. When he wrote, "Women are directly fitted for acting as the nurses and teachers of our earliest childhood, for the simple reason that they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted," he wasn't merely insulting. He was revealing a darker truth, one that most men are too afraid to confront. He meant that women are governed not by reason, but by instinct. Their desire is not stirred by kindness nor by fairness. It is drawn magnetically toward the man who resists. The man who withholds is the man who remains free, unenslaved. And in that refusal to be possessed, he becomes irresistible. A woman does not consciously understand this impulse. She does not wake up and say, "I will chase the man who ignores me," yet she is drawn to the one who will not be conquered. For in conquering him, she believes, deep in her nature, that she validates her own power. Schopenhauer once wrote, "Love is a deception that nature practices on us for the propagation of the species." If love is deception, then indifference is power, and the man who does not bow to her charm, who does not chase, who does not flinch under pressure, that man is the one who escapes the illusion. Look at the men women whisper about in secret. They're not the ones who shower them with gifts or chase them with relentless praise. They are the men who seem to be focused entirely on their own path, their own destiny. These are the men who walk away when disrespected, who remain silent when provoked, who laugh in the face of emotional tests. They are not cruel, but they are untouchable. And that untouchability stirs something primal, a hunger, a desire that knows no logic. Schopenhauer saw past the masks of romance. He understood that behind every tender word lies the same ancient instinct. A woman desires the man she cannot fully possess. But men are told the opposite. From the moment they are boys, they are taught to win her over with more time, more attention, more sacrifices. Yet the more you give, the less she desires you. Because what you're really surrendering is not just your effort, it's your sovereignty. You hand her your crown, and once she holds it, the game ends. She may smile at you, she may even stay, but somewhere in her nature, she despises what you've become. A man who can be owned. Schopenhauer captured this in brutal clarity. The fundamental fault in the character of women is that they have no sense of justice, not because they are evil or cruel, but because their instincts do not calculate fairness. They calculate strength. When you trade your strength for affection, when you bend and yield in the hope that she will see your devotion, she begins to pull away. The man who does not care is not heartless. He simply refuses to place her above himself. He may love her, he may desire her, but he never worships her, and in this asymmetry, her instinct awakens. The paradox is cruel, yet undeniable. The less you care, the more she will. Schopenhauer warned that love is not a gift, but a chain. He wrote, "The sexual impulse is the most complete expression of the will to live." In those words lies a deeper warning. When you orbit your life around a woman, you are no longer living for yourself. You become a servant of nature's will, a pawn in the biological game. That's why the illusion is so powerful. You begin to believe her happiness is your mission, her approval your reward. You think her love is the highest treasure you can win. but the prize is counterfeit. The men who fall into this trap, who dissolve into desperation and lose their center, are cast aside. Because a woman sees no power in the man who has no edge, no backbone. The man who does not care escapes this fate because he sees the trick for what it is. He doesn't deny desire, he may even enjoy it, but he never lets it rule him. His calmness unsettles her, his distance confuses her, his refusal to play the game makes her feel something she cannot explain, a sharp, haunting ache. And in that ache, desire grows. Schopenhauer observed that a man can only truly be himself when he is alone. If he cannot love solitude, he cannot love freedom. Translate that into the language of love, and the meaning becomes clear. The man who embraces solitude, who can walk away without regret, who lives without needing her, is the man who grips her imagination with both fear and fascination. Not because he makes her feel safe, but because he makes her feel challenged. Not because he gives her the world, but because he refuses to make her his world. Understand this. Women are not consciously choosing this dynamic. It is not a cruel strategy, but an ancient instinct whispering in their blood. Nature tells her that the man who resists her is the one most fit to reproduce. His independence signals strength. His indifference signals abundance. And abundance is power. She is not drawn to his kindness. She is drawn to his sovereignty. That is the fire that captivates her. And yet, in today's world, how many men ask, "Why does she lose interest when I give her everything?" The answer is brutal. The moment you make her the sun, she starts looking for another sky to orbit. Because desire does not thrive in comfort. It grows in tension. It grows in mystery. It grows in absence. Schopenhauer knew this when he wrote, "Every parting gives a foretaste of death. Every reunion a hint of resurrection." If you are always available, if you never withhold, if you never let her feel the risk of losing you, then she feels nothing at all. That is why the man who does not care becomes a myth in her imagination. His glances, his words, his touch, they gain weight because they are rare. His distance multiplies his value. The paradox is fatal. Give her your life, and she gives you boredom. Keep your life, and she gives you her obsession. And so the lesson emerges, not from bitterness but from clarity. The man who refuses to place her at the center of his life becomes the center of hers, not through manipulation, but by remaining untouchable, free. And freedom to a woman is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Schopenhauer once declared, "Love is nothing but the consciousness of the species in the individual." In that sentence lies a brutal truth. Love, the way men imagine it, is not a sacred bond. It is the cunning whisper of biology, masked as romance. Women, more deeply bound to this instinct, become its sharpest instruments. Their longing is not for fairness or even kindness. It is for the man who can withstand them, the man who can look into the storm of their moods and remain unmoved. That man, to her, is rare. That man, to her, is king. This is why the man who does not care is not merely resisting a woman. He is resisting the invisible current that pulls most men into the abyss of self-betrayal. He is resisting the illusion that love requires surrender. She withdraws for a day, and he does not chase. She grows silent, and he lets her be. She tests him with icy stares or emotional games, and he remains unmoved. Not because he is indifferent to her, but because he is loyal to himself first. It is this loyalty to self that ignites her obsession. Her instincts tell her, this is a man who cannot be bent. This is a man who stands on ground that is not hers. She feels it before she understands it. The urge to tame him, to draw him in, consumes her. Because in her mind, if she can make him yield, She has conquered something greater than any man who has already given himself away. Yet he never yields. He doesn't rage, doesn't argue, doesn't plead. He simply steps back into his world and lets her storms pass. And in doing so, he holds the line Schopenhauer described as the essence of the will, a raw, unbroken force that resists illusion. The woman senses this, and her instincts catch fire. She knows, without being able to say why, that she cannot own this man, and that is why she burns for him. How many men destroy themselves by doing the opposite? A woman withdraws, and he sends desperate messages. She ignores him, and he floods her with apologies. She disrespects him, and he works harder to prove himself. But every act of over-caring, of over-investment, only deepens her disinterest, because in that she sees a man whose world orbits around her, and instinctively her desire dies. She no longer needs to test him. He has already failed. He can be conquered. Schopenhauer's contempt for romantic idealism was not bitterness, it was precision. He wrote, "A man of genius can hardly love, and a man who loves can hardly be a genius, for the man enslaved by passion cannot see clearly. His reason is swallowed by his longing, his purpose dissolves into the fog of need, and from that moment forward, he is no longer a man. He is a vessel, waiting to be filled with a woman's attention, and she will never admire that. Contrast this with the man who holds his center. She grows cold, and he lets the coldness pass. She retreats, and he returns to his work. She lashes out, and he does not flinch. Not because he's playing games, but because his dignity is not a bargaining chip. His time, his mission, his values, they are not things he will compromise to win favor. And paradoxically, this refusal to be moved is what moves her most. She feels something rare in him, a presence that does not need her, a strength that does not bend, a man who is complete without her. Schopenhauer himself lived largely apart from women, not out of hatred, but because he saw the bargain too clearly. He once said, "Marry, and you will regret it. Do not marry, and you will also regret it. But one of those regrets leaves you free." And this is the brutal wisdom that men must reclaim. When you show a woman that you do not need her, she becomes obsessed with proving herself worthy of you, not by calculation, but by instinct. She cannot help it. Nature has etched into her the need to pursue the man who resists. She desires the conqueror, yes, but more than that, she dreams of conquering him. And when she cannot, when he remains just out of reach, her longing turns to obsession. Schopenhauer stripped the veil from romance when he declared, "Love, that is to say, the sexual impulse, is the will to live in its most distinct manifestation." In other words, what you mistake for a divine connection is merely biology in disguise. The ache you feel, the madness that drives men to write poems and build empires and destroy themselves over a woman, is nature's trick. And women, bound more closely to this primal thread, are its most refined instruments. They do not care for your noble illusions. They respond not to fairness, but to strength, not to comfort, but to tension, not to sacrifice, but to sovereignty. This is why the man who places her at the center of his life will eventually be cast aside. She may accept his gifts, she may enjoy his praise, but she cannot admire a man who lives for her approval, because in her deepest self, she knows that such a man cannot protect her. His energy has been spent not on building a fortress, but on adorning hers. Throughout history, we see this pattern repeat. Great men brought to ruin by their devotion. Kings who fell to the soft hands of queens. Warriors who traded their swords for affection. The stories are countless. Samson for Delilah, Antony for Cleopatra, emperors who abandoned their thrones for the promise of love. These men were not defeated in battle. They were disarmed by beauty. Schopenhauer recognized the same dynamic in modern life. He wrote, "Women are the sex that consumes, while man is the sex that produces." A line steeped in bitterness, yes, but not without truth. She does not fall for the man who gives endlessly. She falls for the man whose energy is consumed by purpose, by creation, by vision, so much so that he has little left to give. His life is not a well for her to drink from. It is a river she can never fully cross, and that is what keeps her chasing. Look at modern men. How many throw away their ambition, their dreams, their discipline in the hope that this will earn them her love? They become passive, agreeable, soft. They say yes when they mean no. They apologize to keep peace. They quiet their voice to accommodate her mood. And then they wonder why she grows colder, why she pulls away, why she begins to despise the man who once seemed so full of promise. It's not cruelty, it's instinct. She sees he has been conquered, and her nature rejects him. Compare this to the man who continues his mission, who treats her not as the center, but as a companion, one who must earn her place. He does not apologize for his ambition. He does not pause his work to validate her emotions. And because of this, she burns for him, not because he plays a role, but because he is real, because he is free. Schopenhauer knew that marriage, far from being a contract of love, is a battlefield where a man's spirit is slowly eroded by endless demands. He warned that when a man sacrifices too much in the name of love, he loses both the love and the respect. A woman cannot desire the man she dominates. She cannot admire the man who lives to serve her. This is why the husband who abandons his mission to make her happy loses everything. And here is the bitter truth. If you surrender your throne, she will not sit beside you. She will walk away. Respect and desire cannot live where devotion becomes weakness. The very act of caring too much becomes the root of destruction. And so, the man who survives is the one who either avoids marriage altogether or enters it with his eyes wide open, his independence intact, and his mission unshaken. Schopenhauer never stopped reminding men, what you call love is the most seductive lie of all. That burning desire, that desperate longing, it's not your soul reaching for another. It's biology moving you like a puppet. And women are the most powerful agents of this lie. Their beauty, their fragility, their mystery, these are not accidents. They are the perfect tools to strip a man of his reason, to make him care too much, and in doing so, lose himself. And once you care too much, the mask drops. You no longer see a goddess. You see the gears of nature turning. You see the game, and it is no longer beautiful. It is brutal. For the woman does not choose the man who worships her. She chases the one who cannot be touched, the one who remains still when others fall to their knees. This is the cruelty that Schopenhauer saw so clearly. When you care too much, you give her the proof that you can be bent. You become predictable, safe, and safety, for all its comfort, kills desire. A woman does not consciously plan this. It is not a strategy. It is a current, a tide of instinct that she herself cannot escape. When she sees that her silence terrifies you, when her anger makes you grovel, when her distance breaks your resolve, she sees a man she no longer needs to pursue. The chase is over. The conquest is done. And with it, the fire dies. But when she sees a man who does not flinch, who does not explain himself endlessly, who does not apologize for his existence, she feels something else, something ancient, something errant, desire. She tests him, and he does not react. She cries, and he does not rush to fix her. She withdraws, and he simply continues walking forward. This man is not cruel. He is sovereign, and sovereignty is the one thing she cannot counterfeit, the one thing she cannot command. Think of how many modern men destroy themselves in this trial. A woman stops texting and he panics. She frowns, and he asks what he did wrong. She grows distant, and he becomes her shadow. But what he cannot see is that every effort to win her back is a confession of need, a confession of fear, a confession that she now holds the leash. And she will never desire a man she can lead. Schopenhauer was venomous in his observation. A man who marries gives up half his rights and doubles his duties. Because marriage, love, even affection, when entered blindly, becomes a one-sided negotiation. Not by malice, but by nature. When you make her your purpose, your center, your reason, you are no longer standing, you are kneeling. And no woman in her bones dreams of a man who kneels. She may enjoy the power for a time, she may smile at the ease of it, but the hunger inside her begins to fade. Because that hunger, that fire that once drew her to you, was not for comfort. It was for conquest, for mystery, for the thrill of the unknown. And when a man gives all of himself too easily, there is nothing left to uncover, nothing to conquer, nothing to want. The man who does not care, however, never reveals everything, not because he is hiding, but because he is full of purpose, full of goals, full of something greater than her validation. And this fullness is intoxicating. He offers what cannot be bought, attention that must be earned, presence that must be respected, love that is never begged for. So she tries harder, becomes more alluring, more giving, more desperate to be chosen by the man who never asked to be chased. Not because she is manipulative, but because she is instinctively pulled toward his power, because his resistance is proof of value. His indifference is the final frontier she cannot conquer, and that impossibility drives her mad with desire. Schopenhauer saw it in every layer of society. Behind every song, every poem, every myth of undying love is a man who forgot his purpose, a man who drowned in her eyes and forgot the world around him. And every time, the result is the same: ruin. For the man who gives everything is left with nothing, and the man who gives nothing but his strength gains everything. It is not hatred of women that drives this truth. It is knowledge of their nature. A woman does not want a man who makes her his home. She wants to be invited into a man's home, a home built on mission, strength, solitude, and direction. She wants to feel chosen, not worshipped, desired, not needed, a guest in a world she cannot rule. Yet modern men are told the opposite. Be soft, be agreeable, be available, say yes, apologize, sacrifice, do whatever it takes to keep her happy. And then they wonder why the women they adore grow bored, grow distant, grow cold. Because happiness is not what stirs her blood. Challenge does. Uncertainty does. Power does. If she feels she owns you, she cannot long for you. If she feels she controls you, she cannot admire you. If she feels she leads you, she cannot desire you. And so, the man who does not care walks through this world like a fire she cannot extinguish. She follows him not because he demands it, but because she cannot help herself. Her instincts will not let her forget him, because he is the one who passed the test she didn't know she was giving. He is the one who withstood her storms, the one who never bowed, the one who through silence made himself unforgettable. And so men must wake up to the truth Schopenhauer saw through the lies of society. Romance, as it is sold to you, is a trap. Love, as it is described in stories, is a mask worn by biology. You are not a soul reaching for another soul. You are a being pulled by nature towards someone who will test the very core of your strength. And if you fail that test, there is no mercy. She will not forgive weakness. She cannot, because she is not wired to. She is wired to survive, to seek strength, to sense power, to follow the man who needs her the least, the man who has the most, and that man must not be cruel. He must not be manipulative. He must be sovereign. That is the secret. Not to harm, but to resist. Not to deceive, but to remain whole. Not to control, but to refuse to be controlled. And in that refusal, he becomes the center of her storm. Because women are drawn to what they cannot own, to the man who values himself more than her opinion, to the man who smiles, but does not chase, who listens, but does not explain, who gives, but never everything, who loves, but never more than he loves his own mission. This is the man who haunts her dreams, the one who left quietly when she pushed too far, the one who did not fight to stay, the one who did not plead, did not break, did not collapse, the one who simply vanished back into his purpose. She may never admit it, but he is the one she remembers. And so, Schopenhauer's cold and final lesson becomes clear. If you want her obsession, never give her everything. If you want her desire, never hand her your crown. If you want her respect, you must first respect yourself. A man who lives for her becomes invisible. A man who lives for himself becomes legendary. Do not hate women. Understand them. Do not reject love. See it clearly. Do not fear losing her. Fear losing yourself. Because in the end, the greatest act of love is not giving yourself away. It is keeping yourself whole. And if that makes you the man who does not care, then so be it. You will not be the one who is forgotten. You will be the one who lingers. In silence, in absence, in the endless gravity of a man who cannot be owned. So guard your crown, walk your path, and let her orbit you if she dares, for only in sovereignty does desire survive.